Hello all, welcome to my channel. I am Tanvi Maheshwari and now let us begin with today's topic, that is ruling the countryside. It is chapter number 3 NCERT, and all of you must be knowing the meaning of countryside. That is the area that lie on the periphery of towns and cities. That areas are regarded as countryside, or we can also say rural areas or village area. Now, why did Britishers wanted to control these areas? Because these areas were highly rich in agriculture. That is, agriculture was the main occupation of these areas. Land revenue was the major source of income. We have been studying this from class 6 only. That land revenue was the major source of income, and now Britishers wanted to keep the financial control in their hands. But who gave them this right to collect revenue from these areas? And these areas were like Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Revenue and assessing and revenue collection rights were given to them by then Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. As you can see in the picture also. This event occurred on 12th August 1765, and Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II had to give the Diwani Rights, that is, the right to collect the revenue of these areas, to the East India Company. Robert Clive, on the behalf of EIC, accepted these rights. But how did they got these rights? We have already done in the previous chapter that after the Battle of Buxar, that is after the Battle of Buxar in 1764, Britishers asked for these rights. What was Battle of Buxar? We are not going to do that in detail now, but yes, Battle of Buxar was fought between the Britishers on one hand, and on other hand there were Mir Qasim, who was then the Emperor of Bengal, and Shuja-ud-Dawla, Emperor of Awadh, and Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. So Britishers won this battle and they asked for the Diwani rights, which made them the Diwan afterwards. Diwan means financial administrator. Now, what is the role of the financial administrator? He had to manage all the finances. He looked after all the administrative purposes. For that, they needed money. Until now, they were importing gold, silver coins from Britain for their for paying for war expenses, for administrative purposes, for buying raw material. But now their problem was solved. That is, it was not required to ask for the money from Britain now. They could have generated this revenue from our country itself. That is from their colonies, the colonies under their control. So now we know that which colonies we are talking about: Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Britishers got the Diwani rights, that is the right to collect revenue from these areas. These rights were called Diwani rights, which made them the Diwan. And how they got these rights? By winning the Battle of Buxar. As it was promised to them, so they had to give up these rights. That is then Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. And this painting was made by a British artist, and he was also commissioned by Robert Clive for creating this magnificent scene. And this event probably would have taken in the Robert Clive's tent itself, if we go by the witnesses record of both British and Indian witnesses records. Now, Britishers had to think and plan the organization of Bengal in such a way that they could derive maximum benefit with the least responsibility. As we all know, that Britishers came as traders. They came as traders and they were granted the free trading rights in 1600 by then Mughal Emperor Jahangir. They still considered themselves as traders, but they wanted to indirectly rule the territories under their control. But they didn't want to take up the throne because they know that the responsibilities were quite high. So they tried to devise a system that could give them the maximum benefit with the least responsibility. Now they realized that they were an alien power, that is, they were a foreign power. They were not natives of these territories, or if I talk about, then I could say that India, they were not the natives of here, so they knew that they could not eliminate the local rulers out of this process. They needed the support of these local rulers, and these local rulers were supported by the common people. Common people respected these local rulers, so Britishers try to take the help of these local rulers because they know that eliminating them would have angered the common people, and this could have gone against them. So before 1865, the company was getting all the gold, silver, money from the Britain, but now the inflow was stopped as they started generating revenue from here itself. Then Bengal economy went into crisis. Bengal economy went into serious crisis. Artisans and farmers, they started deserting villages. Why? Because they were not getting the return of their produce or sell. So they were losing their jobs. They were leading miserable lives. They had nowhere to go. So they started going out of the villages and looking out after looking for new jobs. And 1770, another major event took place, that is a serious famine, a major famine broke out in Bengal that took away almost 10 millions of lives. And before that, Britishers didn't pay any attention to the improvement of in the field of agriculture, because they were only bothered with their revenue generation. I mean, they just wanted to accumulate as much as wealth as they could have without paying any heed to the lives of the peasants or artisans. And from 1765 till 1770, in 5 years only, the value of goods almost doubled. So economy went into crisis. After that, famine broke out, and finally Britishers realized that they needed a new system by which they could have got some improvement in the field of agriculture. So after almost, if I say 20 years, a new system was devised that was known as permanent settlement. This system, permanent settlement, was devised in 1793. And who was the mastermind? Lord Cornwallis. Lord Cornwallis devised this system. And this system made the Rajas and Talukdars, or you can say local rulers, they gave them the power to collect the revenue from their land by appointing the peasants and making them their tenants, and collecting revenue from them and handing over to the Britishers. It was their job. So this way, Britishers were benefited because they could now have a regular flow of income, and revenue was also fixed. That's why the word permanent is used. Permanent means that they started getting a fixed amount of revenue. So it was decided that revenue won't be increased, and Britishers will be getting a regular flow of income from these zamindars. And zamindars also thought that we would be getting our share, and if the production would be high, then we would be benefited more. But nobody thought about the peasants who if unable to pay the revenue to the zamindars, they were thrown out of the land. They had to evacuate. So this was not good for the peasants, and in turn many problems were created for the Britishers itself, because the revenue was fixed. So in some months, if revenue zamindars the revenue that was zamindars were getting, it was high, the Britishers didn't get the share of that because revenue was fixed. Then sometimes zamindars had to lose their land in many cases. In the initial years of the settlement, many zamindars lose their land if they fail to pay the revenue, because revenue was fixed but it was very high, and it was very oppressive for the peasants as well. So rent was high, and I have already told you that if peasants failed to pay that, they were evacuated from the land. So this system also proved to be a failure. Also, this system was introduced to introduce some changes in the field of agriculture, as Britishers thought that zamindars would be able to bring some development in the field of agriculture, but zamindars were also concerned with the accumulation of wealth just like the Britishers. So this system also proved to be a failure.